Men over 40 mix these two things up all the time: solitude and isolation. Do you ever see tiny wooden cabins in the middle of nowhere on YouTube and think, yeah, a month there would be great? That's about the time someone says, no way, that's far too isolated for me. And men over 40 mix these two things up all the time: solitude and isolation. They look the same from the outside, but they feel completely different on the inside. One builds you, the other breaks you. I've lived both. One saved my life, the other nearly destroyed it. I didn't learn about solitude from YouTube videos, mindfulness or books or any of that stuff. I learned it the stubborn way, running through the places most people wouldn't last a day. When you're deep in the jungle in Peru and the canopy is so thick, your thoughts echo. You realise how loud your head really is. When you're crossing the Sahara and the sun strips the bullshit off you layer by layer, you see what's left when ego burns away. And when you're dragging a pulk through the Arctic with your eyelashes freezing together and nothing but your breath for company, you learn who you are without an audience. People think men do these races to prove something, but I did them to find something. I wanted to step away from the noise. I wanted to hear myself again. I wanted to get back to the man underneath everything life had piled on top. That's solitude, chosen, steady, clearing, restorative, the kind of quiet men over 40 desperately need, not for peace, but for clarity. But before any of that, I went through something much darker. I was homeless, miles from my family, cut off, stuck in my own head. Not alone by choice, alone because life backed me into a corner. That wasn't solitude, that was isolation. And isolation hits men over 40 in the way most people will never understand. It shrinks you, it twists how you see yourself. It makes your world smaller every day. It convinces you that disappearing is easier than dealing with life. And I felt myself getting weaker, not physically, but spiritually. There's a silence that heals you and a silence that kills you. Isolation is the second one. It took me years to understand that. It took me years to understand that solitude is where a man finds himself. Isolation is where a man loses himself. People hear solitude and imagine mountains, deserts and plane tickets. But solitude doesn't have to be extreme. Sometimes it's as simple as a walk with a dog. Let me tell you about Eorl the bastard. He was a rescue English bull terrier. He looked like a stormtrooper. He had the attitude of a pit viper. He had a big solid head, solid attitude, and an absolute pain in the arse. And when I was in the darkest stage of depression and PTSD, I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want daylight. I didn't want people. Inside the house was isolation, the dangerous kind. But Eorl didn't care about my mental state. He'd jump on the back of my chair, leap over my shoulder and literally chew my ear until I got up and took him outside. And as soon as the door opened, he'd leg it. He'd run across this park, over this bridge, down this path, and I'd have to chase him. Which was brilliant, because it forced me to move. It forced a state change. It forced me out of my own head. Then he'd dive into the river, every single time, without fail, and swim laps until he was finished. And that meant I had to sit by the riverbank and breathe and think and actually process what was happening in my life. Looking back, those moments weren't isolation. They were solitude. Same day, same man, just different environment, different outcome. Inside the house, I was drowning. Outside, by the river, I was recovering. Solitude and isolation can look identical, but internally, they are worlds apart. Once you get solitude back, you realise something important. You get to choose who steps into it with you. That choice is what separates solitude from isolation. Isolation, no one is there. Solitude, you decide who to let in, and men over 40 forget this. We think being alone means being unavailable. It doesn't. Sometimes the right person in your solitude makes the whole experience stronger. This week, I've been doing a lot of jobs around the house, getting ready for a retreat at the weekend, cutting wood, tidying, sorting gear, the usual. Normally this is my solitude time, when I'll cut the grass, but my son has just graduated university and he's been spending a lot of time with us. And without planning it, he's been by my side while I work. And I realised I invited him into my solitude and I'm loving it. Not deep chats, not loud conversations, just steady work together. Quiet moments, present, connection, bit of banter. It reminded me that solitude isn't supposed to be a fortress. It's supposed to be a space you can control. When you own your solitude, you decide who enters, your mate, your partner, your son, your dog. That's how men over 40 rebuild real connection without losing themselves. Men don't grow in chaos. They don't grow in comfort. They grow in the middle. Challenge supported by connection. Solitude supported by community. That's what saved me. Not running away from life, but stepping far enough away to see it clearly and coming back sharper. And that's why our Arctic and wilderness trips are built the way they are. We don't throw men into chaos. We give them space. We give them challenge. We give them support. We give them stillness. The intersection of those things is where the most growth happens. Now, if that resonates, you can get on my email list below and I'll share more when everything's finalised and we're getting really, really close. So solitude or isolation? Solitude is being whole, complete, content. And isolation is being islanded, cut off, marooned. Which one are you actually living in? Because if you can answer that honestly, you'll know exactly where your next step is. And if you can't answer that, take that as a sign that you need solitude more than you realise. A walk, cold air, a riverbank, a quiet corner with the sun peeking over the hills, a dog dragging you outside, whether you want it or not. Anything that gives your mind space without swallowing you. And men over 40 don't fall apart because they're weak. They fall apart because they stop spending time with the version of themselves they respect. Solitude helps you find him again. Isolation buries him. And I can say this from experience. Solitude saved me. Isolation nearly broke me. Know the difference. Choose the one that builds you. And remember, don't be a